This is the Art Marketing Minute with Eric Rhodes, author of the Amazon best-selling book, Make More Money Selling Your Art. In the Marketing Minute, we answer your questions to help your art career. Brought to you by artmarketing.com, the place to go to learn more about marketing. Now, here's your host, Art Magazine publisher, Eric Rhodes.
Thank you, Jim Kipping, and thank you for joining us today. I am here. My goal is to eliminate the idea of the starving artist. So let's get right to today's questions. Here's a question from Robert in Norfolk, Virginia, who says, I know it's important to have a website, so I do have a simple one, but how do I know if it's good enough? Well, the way you know that, Robert, it's a great question. You can't know if it's good enough unless you know what its purpose is and what the purpose is going to use and how it's going to serve you. So you need to know how you will measure success, right? So some websites are there to get your work seen. Others are there to sell work. Others are there to gather names of potential customers. There's a lot of different strategies you can take, but you want to start with your goal in mind, all right? So if I'm building a website, what do I want to do? Well, in my particular case, I wanted to communicate information, and then I've got to make sure that I'm gathering names. And so I oftentimes offer a free incentive of some kind so somebody has a reason to offer me their email address and they can get on my newsletters or whatever I'm offering at the time. But you want to start with a goal in mind and then determine what is success. Now, if I have a website and I get no visitors, it's not a success. How many visitors do I need and want? How easy is it to find my stuff? How many names do I want? What kind of sales do I need? Or, what's considered good sales from your website? If it's costing you money and it's not bringing you any value, that's of no value to you, really. It's kind of like, imagine in the old days, we had what we called phone books. You probably remember those, some of you do. And, there were, 3 inches thick in a city like New York, probably, 6 inches thick of phone book with thousands, tens of thousands, millions of names in it and addresses. And, it doesn't do you any good to be in the phone book unless somebody's looking for you. And so you've got to find a strategy to make them want to look you up. There are literally probably hundreds of millions, if not billions of websites now. And so the question is, how do you get them to find you? What's your discovery tool? How are they going to find you? What do you want them to do when they get there? What actions do you want them to take? So I can't really answer your question about whether or not it's good enough, because good enough is defined by your goals. And so you first got to start out with your goals. The next question comes from Katrina Gorman in San Antonio, Texas. Katrina has sent us a whole bunch of questions. We like her a lot because we like questions. Here's one of them that she sent in. She says, if people tell you over and over they love your work, but you notice these same people are buying work from another artist, what's a good way to find out why? Or should you not even worry about it? Well, Katrina, I think first off, people are generally good and they mean to compliment you because it may not be an expression of interest. They may genuinely like your work, but they don't want to own it. Or maybe they're complimenting you a lot because maybe they're thinking you'll give it to them. I mean, that could be a possibility. But liking something and wanting to own it are different things. Owning art is very special, something that speaks to really only just one person. If there's one original, it's for one person. So sometimes it needs to find the right buyer. Now, I wouldn't overthink this. Appreciate the compliments. Pay attention if the compliments are over the top or come infrequently or a lot on a particular piece, because then you can kind of take it to the next level. So you can find a way to ask, maybe so you don't put them on the spot. You don't have to say, hey, would you like to own that? Because they might not know how much it would cost or be embarrassed if they can't afford it or whatever. But you can say, the old, remember, I've got a friend who's asking for me kind of a thing. You could say, do you know anybody who would love to own it? I'd like to find it a loving home. And if you happen to know somebody who would love to own it, I'm trying to get, a certain amount of money for it. And, or you might say, you seem to like this a lot. Do you have interest in it? And if you do, Tell me what you're thinking about in terms of what you're thinking about paying. You know, the reason to do that is because they could be thinking about $1 and you could be thinking about $100, or they could be thinking about $200 and you could be thinking about $100. And so the nice thing to do is just to say, you know, what have you got in mind? And if there's a big gap, then that's going to make it a little uncomfortable. You can say, wow, you know, I was hoping to get $100 and you're only willing to pay $5. You know, please understand, I need to make a living on this. And so, you know, if you want to come up a little bit, maybe I can come down a little bit, but please know that, you know, I've got to get a certain range, and I'm sure you understand that this is how I make my living. So anyway, you can keep it third party by saying, you know, if you know somebody who thinks it's a fit, you know, that kind of thing, or you can just be honest and say, hey, you know, what are you thinking? I noticed you bought some other art. You seem to be interested in this, but you haven't expressed interest in buying it. If you want to buy it, that'd be cool with me. We can figure that out. You know, sometimes just straight out, up front, be honest as possible is probably the best way. A lot of people play games. I don't like to play games. Anyway, paying attention to signals is important, though. You know, if you're in a gallery setting and people go back and look at it a couple of times, if they're talking about it or if they're looking deeply, you know, look for things that they're showing signals of interest, and then you can engage them. You know, maybe you don't say, hey, do you want to buy it? That's a little awkward, but you can say, hey, does that painting remind you of anything? And maybe they'll say, yeah, you know, when I was a kid, there was this mountain with a river going through, you know, that kind of a thing. And so you can look for ways to deepen that conversation. So they tell you that. You say, well, tell me a little bit more about that. You know, well, I really had this wonderful childhood, you know, when I visited my grandparents, and that house in the painting reminds me of my grandparents. Really, tell me more. And, you know, so they'll deepen. And as they deepen, they will tend to deepen their commitment and interest and talk themselves into it. Because sometimes people just need to talk themselves into something. You can't ever talk anybody into anything. Don't even try. It's not in your DNA. It's not in my DNA. You know, I might, if I see somebody's interested in something, I might highlight something, but I'm not, you know, I can't twist somebody's arm and talk them into something. I mean, you don't want to be that person. You don't want to be talking people into things that they don't want. Well, this has been the Art Marketing Minute with me, Eric Rhodes. My goal in life is to eliminate the idea of the starving artist and to help your dreams actually come true. So if you want to submit questions, simply email eric@artmarketing.com. And to learn more about marketing ideas, you can visit artmarketing.com. Thanks for listening.